Discover 15 incredible things to eliminate for transformative peace. Unexpected lessons revealed. Emily's hands trembled as they hovered over the dusty canvas that had emerged from the shadows of her grandmother's abandoned gallery. Each brushstroke whispered forgotten dreams, bright colors fading into muted echoes of a time when art was celebrated, not relegated to the corners of memory. The rain pattered against the roof above, mirroring the storm brewing in her mind. How had she allowed her own aspirations to slip away, hidden beneath the weight of Ben's diaper bag and storytime routines? As she squinted at the canvas, a swirl of emotions surged within her, an unrelenting mix of dread and determination. Would she ever reclaim her identity, balancing the demands of motherhood with her creative yearnings? The gallery was a heartbeat of her family's legacy, and the thought of its demolition stirred a fury deeper than she knew she possessed. Yet, what could she do? Her life had become a cycle of endless responsibilities, each one threatening to smother her dreams. Ben's laughter echoed from below, a reminder of her role as a mother. It tugged at her heartstrings, radiating warmth, while simultaneously swallowing her sense of self. Was the sacrifice worth it? Her mind raced. Had she given up her career for a life defined by laundry piles and playdates? Could she be more than just Ben's mom? The walls of the gallery sat close, their cracks a testament to her uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she sat back on her heels, a wave of despair pressed against her chest. She pictured the gallery, vibrant and alive, threatened by developers with deep pockets and empty hearts. She felt the tension in her shoulders. The weight of her grandmother's legacy was now hers to uphold. Families would debate whether progress outweighed preservation, and all she could envision were her dreams slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. "Mommy," Ben's voice called from the staircase, pulling her from her thoughts. She turned, forcing a smile. He stood there with a crayon, his miniature masterpiece decorating one hand. The innocence on his face clashed violently with the tempest raging in hers. All the while, guilt gnawed at her insides. Could she teach him about perseverance while she herself crippled under doubt? With each passing moment, she felt a fire ignite deep within, one that beckoned her to rise. But each ember of courage was tempered by the looming shadows of societal expectations, whispering insecurities that insisted she should remain safe, secure, and silent. The thought of allowing ambition to eclipse her maternal duty felt unthinkable. The canvas before her pulsed with potential, but so did the fear of failure. She was caught between fighting for her grandmother's legacy and the desire to forge her own creative path. Standing at the precipice of a decision that could rewrite her story, Emily inhaled sharply, every fiber of her being urging her to take the first step. She envisioned the community meeting, the flood of doubt and the flame of passion, each battling for dominance within her. Would the tapestry of her life remain threadbare, or could it be woven anew in a vibrant display? With the rain cascading outside, she faced the dusty canvas one last time. This was the moment that defined who she could become, or the remnants she would become, as uncertainty loomed large. Now, the question echoing in the stormy silence was clear: did she have what it took to seize the legacy, and in doing so, claim her lost voice? The moment hung in the air like a suspended drop of water waiting to fall. Emily felt the weight of the brush in her hand, its wood smooth and familiar, yet so foreign after years of neglect. It represented the tension of her existence, the fear of confronting her past against the desire to reclaim her artist's spirit. The mere thought of risking it all by stepping back into the world of creativity filled her with both dread and exhilaration. Could she still paint? Would her art still resonate after all this time? The laughter of Ben filtered through the walls, a melody of innocence that contrasted sharply with Emily's tumultuous thoughts. She possessed the unrelenting urge to be both mother and artist, yet she feared the clash of these identities. Would pursuing her long-lost passion make her less of a mother? Or, conversely, could embracing her creativity actually enhance her motherhood? This duality pinned her in agonizing indecision. With a shaky breath, she knelt before the canvas and dipped the brush into the faded palette. She filled its bristles with a deep, reflective blue. The color stirred old memories of art classes, vibrant discussions around the dinner table, laughter and creativity woven into the very fabric of her upbringing. As the brush met the canvas, she felt a spark, a reminder of the world beyond diapers and routines. She painted, stroke by stroke, letting instinct guide her hand. Each line released pent-up desires, the colors igniting dormant emotions. For the first time in years, she was reclaiming a piece of herself, and the flow of creativity transformed despair into something tangible. Yet a shadow of uncertainty loomed, the fear of judgment gnawed at the edges of her resolve. In the depths of this newfound freedom, a dissonance persisted. What if her art was no longer relevant? What if the critiques she had once dismissed now felt like a death sentence to her confidence? Emily pressed the brush harder against the canvas, reaffirming her existence in each stroke. It was as though she was not only painting a scene, but also redefining the contours of her identity: an artist, a mother, a force to be reckoned with. As she stepped back to admire her work, a muted masterpiece emerged. Somewhere within the chaotic splashes of color was the seed of her grandmother's legacy, the very foundation that could be expanded into her own. A rush of purpose electrified her. Yet, the practicalities of life interjected. How would she manage to advocate for the gallery's preservation while cultivating her art? The gallery meeting was just days away. The thought of publicly contesting the demolition fueled her determination. Emily's heart raced. Standing up was not merely about salvaging a building, but about reclaiming herself. The criticism she feared was now a catalyst for growth. Infused with a newly kindled courage, she picked up her phone, thumbs poised, contemplating which message to send first. The tightness in her chest transformed into anticipation. She had a voice, and she was ready to use it. Just then, Ben bounded into the room, crayon still clutched in hand, eyes wide with curiosity about his mother's artistic endeavor. In that moment, she realized the inherent lesson she was imparting: persistence in the face of doubt. Yet, her revelation was accompanied by a haunting question: would her desire to lead a balanced life spiral into chaos now that a fire had been lit? Determined but aware of the risks, Emily grasped for her composure. The journey was just beginning, and with it brought a daunting question to the surface: was she ready to face the whirlwind of public scrutiny and rediscover herself at the potential expense of everything she held dear? Emily stared at her artwork, its vibrant colors mirroring the turmoil inside her. Realization hit her hard: this painting was not merely an expression but a powerful emblem of what she wanted to advocate for. It was hard to believe that a simple canvas could inspire such a whirlwind of passion. Yet, as she cleaned her brush, she couldn't shake off the suffocating weight of uncertainty pressing down on her shoulders. The gallery meeting loomed ahead, a battleground for her ambitions, and the stakes felt impossibly high. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the piles of dishes and laundry that clashed with her creative space. She turned her attention to Ben, who was stacking his toy blocks, blissfully unaware of the turmoil his mother faced. The simplicity of his joy ignited a flicker of resolve within her. This was not just about her art or the gallery, it was about setting an example for her son. She wanted him to witness her determination, to see that it was possible to fight for one's passions without sacrificing love and responsibility. As she prepared lunch, Emily's mind raced through the various ways she could articulate her case for the gallery. She pictured the council members, their scrutinizing gazes, and she felt a familiar tightness in her chest. How could she argue for preservation when everything about her felt so fragile? It was daunting to think of criticizing the decision-makers who held her family's future in their hands. Yet there was a revelation waiting to be unearthed within her. It was time to confront that fear, to dissect it, understand it, disarm it. She took a deep breath, envisioning her message taking form. This might be more than just an argument, it would be a narrative of resilience and heritage. As an artist, she had always harnessed the power of storytelling through her medium. Now, she needed to apply the same principle to her advocacy. What if she crafted her approach around the legacy of the gallery itself, representing the voices of countless artists who had shaped their community? With her lunch preparations completed, Emily pulled out her notebook, the pages crisp and unblemished like her aspirations. She wrote down key points, drafting stories that wove together the emotional impact of the gallery's impact on previous generations, including her own. Each new bullet point reignited her sense of purpose, transforming her apprehension into fervor. Yet, doubt whispered insidiously at the back of her mind. Would her personal narrative resonate with the council members? Could her status as an artist carry weight when juxtaposed with her role as a mother? She needed to embrace both identities, integrating them into a bold declaration of who she was instead of painting them as conflicting forces. As the clock ticked ever closer to the meeting, she felt the room pulse with impending decisions. She had built an outline, but could she execute it with the conviction it required? With newfound determination, she dressed in clothes that felt empowering, a reminder of the artist within her. Standing in front of the mirror, she whispered to herself lines of strength and affirmation, summoning courage not only for her son but for herself. Outside, the world had changed, the vibrant colors of her painting echoed the hues of the day. Each shade reaffirmed a belief: transformation awaited. Emily tightened her grip on her notebook as she headed out the door. She was ready to confront not only the council members but also her deepest insecurities. But the moment she stepped onto the front porch, a wild uncertainty crept in, blooming like the flowers in her neglected garden. What if her message fell flat? What if she was unable to articulate her vision? The moment of truth had arrived, and as she hesitated on the threshold, the weight of duality pressed heavier on her heart. The gallery awaited her voice, a palette still untouched, full of potential. Would she dare to fill in the blank spaces of her destiny? Emily stepped off the porch, her heart beating steadily against the walls of doubt that momentarily stood frozen around her. The sun poured light over the gravel path, illuminating both her anxiety and resolve. She understood now that every step away from home was a step towards a vision she had nurtured quietly for too long. Clinging tightly to her notebook felt like embracing her future, a lifeline in that uncertain sea. As she made her way to the gallery, she began replaying her carefully crafted arguments in her mind, each compelling narrative entwined with her family's history. In the past, Emily had often allowed the opinions of others to shape her actions, but today felt different. Today held a fierceness she hadn't accessed before, a recognition that her voice had value. Yet, the closer she got to the gallery, the more her stomach churned. What if the council dismissed her? The thought sent waves of doubt rushing through her, but with every turn of her thoughts toward Ben, his earnest blue eyes, those radiant smiles, she propelled herself forward. Each memory of their little moments together provided fuel, reminding her of the importance of tenacity. Upon arriving, the gallery loomed before her, its facade inviting but imposing. She paused for a moment to gather her thoughts, sensing an invisible weight looming over the threshold. The noises of footsteps and eager discussions filled the air, harmonizing with the flutter of her pulse. Breathing in deeply, she entered, the view around her blossoming with vibrant canvases and sculptures, each telling stories of struggle and triumph, just as her own would soon do. The gallery buzzed with anticipation as other artists mingled, exchanging greetings and whispers of last-minute updates. She found a corner where the walls whispered of profound legacies, and it steadied her chaotic thoughts. All around her were artists who had carved paths against formidable odds. Were they not fighting for the same things she desired? As she observed the interaction, something awakened inside her. She loosened her grip on the notebook and let her heart speak. Who was she destined to become if she allowed fear to cripple her? This realization washed over her. She was not defending merely herself or her art, but an entire community of artists who dared to dream, who persisted despite life's unpredictability. With renewed energy, she approached a group of artists, her earlier reservations evaporating as she introduced herself. To her surprise, they were welcoming, eager to share their experiences and perspectives. Each conversation tumbled into stories of rejection, of hard-fought victories, and the collective weight of creative existence. Emily felt invigorated, the threads of camaraderie wrapping around her. Then it happened: an artist spoke up, his face somber as he described his past battles with self-doubt, mirroring her internal war. "I learned," he said, "that vulnerability is not my weakness, it's my greatest strength. Let them see the real you." A hush fell over the group as his words landed, igniting something deep within her, an understanding that transformed into a quiet resolve. It struck her this meeting wasn't simply about the outcome. It was also about self-discovery, and her role was far bigger than she believed. She was not merely an advocate, she was a fighter in pursuit of her passion. The gallery's significance was fueled by its artists, its history, and what they collectively represented, and that was what she had to showcase. Deliberation and clarity coursed through her. As the time for her period approached, she stood straighter and exhaled. In that moment, she realized she was stepping not just into a meeting but into her truth. The stories she had unearthed weren't just for artistic purposes, they were the backbone of her advocacy. Taking a final deep breath, she thrust the notebook into her bag, ready to share her narrative. She was prepared to pour out those vibrant stories onto a canvas much larger than her own, yet she still faced the daunting challenge ahead. With all her newfound conviction, she positioned herself outside the meeting room. The echoes of her heartbeat drummed a steady rhythm in her ears, a reminder of the fight she was embarking on. The inevitable truth loomed large. Would this be the moment she fortified her identity as both an artist and a mother, or would she retreat once again into doubt? As she braced herself for what lay ahead, she caught her own reflection in the glass. The emerging artist within her demanded to be heard, emulating the fervor she saw in her colleagues. But would she have the courage to let it out? The door swung open, and she entered the room, ready to confront her past, embrace her dual identity, and lay bare her aspirations. The council awaited, and she understood it was time to stop wondering what could be, and start defining it. With burgeoning clarity, she positioned herself firmly in the present, but the lingering question unfurled in her mind: was she truly prepared for the battle that awaited, or would silence suffocate the voice that yearned for expression? As Emily entered the meeting room, her senses sharpened, absorbing the ambience that pulsed with quiet authority. The council members sat before her, an intimidating array of expressions ranging from curiosity to mild skepticism. Her heart raced in counterpoint to the rigid calmness they exuded. Could they see the tempest inside her? They appeared grounded, yet she felt buoyed by the risks she was about to take. Each step toward the podium felt monumental, as though she was rocketing past the barriers that had long held her back. She placed her notebook on the stand, her fingers brushing the leather cover, grounding her in this very moment. Drawing a deep breath, she encapsulated weeks of contemplation, her mind racing with thoughts of her children, her art, and the battle she had fought within herself. She was not presenting art merely for art's sake, but rather as an illuminating narrative that connected her life to the struggles of others. "Thank you for this opportunity," she began, her voice steadying as she spoke. The words flowed forth as if she had plucked them from the air, tangible aspirations merging with her reality. The council listened, she could feel their attention shifting from passive observers to active participants as she outlined her vision, carefully weaving in poignant anecdotes. All the hours spent gathering stories of resilience flashed in her head like a rapid montage, artists tackling their fears, confronting their demons, and channeling that energy into their work. Every tale emboldened her, serving as a reminder that each person walked their own jagged path. She invited them to see the visible scars and the hidden victories of the artists she had come to represent. Midway through her presentation, she stumbled over a moment, a lingering silence as she paused to collect her thoughts. Doubt sliced through her, teasing her unease that perhaps her message was ineffectual. But remembering the artist's words on vulnerability, she pushed past it. Art has the power to speak where words fail. My mission is to amplify those voices that often go unheard. The shift from apologetic to assertive felt tangible, igniting a flicker of hope within her. Although some council members leaned forward, their expressions contemplative, others remained stoic. With each passing second, she grew more aware of their scrutiny. Her pulse quickened as she scanned their faces, searching for affirmation. A woman with silver hair, seated at the center, nodded slightly, her eyes soft yet piercing. It was a delicate reprieve in an otherwise steep ascent. After Emily completed her presentation, the room fell silent. It was then that she faced the council's questions, each one an excavation, probing her resolve, her worthiness. Would they challenge her motives? Her dedication? Each inquiry felt like a crucible that threatened to expose her vulnerabilities, and yet she stood firm, grounding herself with the knowledge that this was part of her evolution. In advancing her case, she glimpsed the inner workings of her own beliefs. It dawned on her that this was not just about convincing others. It was about evolving. The council's questions were not adversarial, they were invitations to delve deeper, to own her narrative fully. Tedious moments passed, but she engaged calmly, the threads of her past weaving seamlessly into her aspirations. But as the questions grew more intricate, a shadow flitted across her thoughts. How long could she maintain this facade of confidence? Then, a question arose that shot her resolve like a lightning bolt. What if your art fails to resonate? What then? It hung heavily in the air, tethering her to an uncomfortable truth. She inhaled sharply, the vulnerability of that inquiry striking a chord. Would she allow fear of failure to silence her spirit? Reflective detachment danced on the edges of her mind, her heart racing as she recognized the precipice of an important choice. The moment had come to confront the truth. Embracing failure was equally vital to her story. Art is the embodiment of resilience, she stated with clarity. The failure is part of the journey, not the destination. The words thrummed with conviction. She realized she was not voicing a mere defense, she was unveiling the essence of her mission. The room hummed as the counsel absorbed her reply. As the meeting continued, Emily pressed forward, more grounded, more determined. Each question held an undercurrent of possibilities she had never considered. Hidden dimensions of strength began illuminating within her. She was unearthing her own layers, the complexity of her identity, the weight of her aspirations, and the acceptance of both success and failure danced in sync. When her time concluded, that air of uncertainty once penned up now felt like a liberating rush. As she exited the meeting room, she caught a glimpse of herself in another reflective surface. The fear had lessened but not vanished entirely. She understood it now as part of her journey. Yet, she could feel a looming anxiety. What if the council didn't support her? What if all of this led to another disappointment? The anticipation of their judgment lingered like a steel door, waiting to swing open. Would she emerge from this experience emboldened, unafraid of her own vulnerabilities, or would she find herself second-guessing everything once again? There was no answer just yet, only the echo of her pounding heart echoing the questions of what came next. The days following the meeting transformed into a landscape of apprehensive anticipation. Emily sat in her studio, brush in hand, yet unable to connect with the blank canvas before her. The vibrancy of colors that usually inspired her now felt like an insurmountable barrier. She could almost taste the uncertainty that lingered in the air, the unfinished words from the council echoing in her mind until they became a relentless chorus. What if they saw her for what she really was, an artist striving for significance amid self-doubt? Determined to not let anxiety anchor her, she forced herself to focus. She mixed pigments, splattering the canvas in reckless abandon, channeling disquiet into tangible bursts of color. Each violent stroke offered a brief release from the tension coiling around her thoughts. In this chaotic expression, she started digging through layers of her own vulnerability, confronting those fears that stalked her from the shadows. It struck her again. Was it fear of her art failing, or was it the fear of exposing her true self that paralyzed her creative flow? The paintbrush wavered as a revelation struck her. She had always sought validation outside, measuring her worth by others' perceptions. It wasn't the art itself that needed validation but her journey as an artist. As the realization crystallized, she heard the echo of her own words at the meeting: art is the embodiment of resilience. She had disrupted the cycle of self-doubt during her presentation. Now she needed to apply the same radical honesty to her artistic practice. That afternoon, with the sun casting long shadows through her studio window, she began documenting her journey, not just the triumphs but the missteps, the struggles, and the disillusionments. Each entry, steeped in authenticity, became a pathway leading back to her heart. The act of writing felt liberating, a way to strip away the facades that had encased her spirit. Words haunted her still, but this time they morphed into catalysts rather than constraints. With renewed vigor, Emily faced the canvas again, but this time, she didn't seek perfection. She longed for expression, raw, honest, and sometimes jarring. The ensuing artwork danced between chaos and beauty, mirroring the tumultuous yet vibrant emotions within her. It was in those imperfections that she began to recognize fragments of herself she had long buried. The shimmering undercurrents of vulnerability wove magic into her art, each piece now a reflection of her journey, a kaleidoscope of resilience, joy, and uncertainty. But as her inspiration surged, an encroaching doubt slithered back in a looming dialogue, asking whether anyone else would actually connect with her newfound artistic voice. Would the council of before appreciate this rawness? The juxtaposition of yearning for acceptance and fear of rejection ignited a flicker of anxiety in her chest once more. There was a pivotal decision looming, a crossroads that promised either stagnation or growth. Underneath the exhilaration of her art discovery lay a gut-wrenching question: should she share this authentic journey with others, revealing her deeper self? The potential exposure meant risking judgment, a fragile thread dragging her back into the depths of uncertainty. As days turned into weeks, Emily's artistry flourished, yet she remained ensnared in contemplation. The fear of vulnerability loomed large. But deep within, she felt a persistent whisper urging her forward, the possibility that opening up could resonate beyond herself, creating connections that transcended mere artistic evaluation. In the quiet hours before dawn, as she prepared for another day at the studio, Emily made a choice. She would create a new series, one that embodied her journey through vulnerability, using her art as a conduit for exploration and expression. This wasn't merely a chance to heighten her artistic trajectory, it was a risk towards becoming the artist she longed to be, one who embraced the chaos of her emotional landscape. The tension thickened with this new undertaking, each moment feeling more precarious than the last. There was an undeniable freedom in claiming her narrative, yet the clarity she sought seemed tantalizingly out of reach. Would she break through, or was she merely inviting more scrutiny on her already fragile spirit? This time, the relentless questions were not a disincentive, they had transformed into rallying cries. The moment whispered promises of both connection and revelation. It held the power to redefine her understanding of success. As she laced her paintbrush onto the canvas once again, the horizon of her artistic journey expanded into an expanse of newfound potential. And then the call came, a member of the council, eager to discuss her work after the meeting. It was time for her to confront her fears, to dive deeper into the uncharted waters that lay before her. As the phone slipped from her hand and landed on the studio floor, a cascade of paintbrushes clattered around it, echoing the turmoil inside Emily's chest. The voice on the other end was calm yet authoritative, and for a moment, she felt like a small vessel adrift amid a storm. This was the moment she had been waiting for, yet her inner landscape became an echo chamber of uncertainties. What if her recent work wasn't enough? What if they saw through her facade of confidence and beheld only the raw cracks in her artistry? Taking a deep breath, Emily steadied herself. This call wasn't merely a chance for critique, it was an opportunity to push her boundaries, one more step closer to becoming the artist she envisioned. She clenched her fists, steadied her resolve, and decided to engage openly. If she was going to discuss her art, it would be the authentic journey she had embraced, imperfections and all. In the following days, conversations flourished in her mind. Emily spent hours reconstructing her thoughts around the council's artistic expectations and evaluating her own perspectives on vulnerability and self-expression. Each night, she fell asleep tangled in the intricacies of her narrative, finding new connections between her emotions and her artistry. When the day finally arrived for their meeting, the air in her studio felt charged with an electric anticipation. As she prepared, Emily adorned herself in what she deemed her artist uniform. A cascade of colors splashed across an apron, embodying the very essence of her chaotic journey. The vibrant palette symbolized her encounter with vulnerability, both thrilling and intimidating. Once at the council's office, she was escorted to a space brimming with glossy art pieces, each one crafted under the precision of artistic expectations. Her heart raced. This was not just a collection, but a testament to an industry that often rewarded conformity over authenticity. Moments before she entered, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in a polished surface, and for the first time, she didn't see the artist weighed down by fear, she saw the artist armed with honesty. As they convened, the room fell silent, and her heart thudded against her chest. Each member of the council was poised with their notes, waiting expectantly. Emily began to share her journey, letting the words flow like paint from her brush. She spoke of her struggles, her triumphs, and her recent artistic evolution that embraced her vulnerabilities. The openness in her delivery became a salve to her nerves, transforming anxiety into palpable energy. Then came the pivotal moment. One member leaned forward, eyes alight with curiosity, and asked how she planned to structure this evolving series of work. With a confidence she hadn't known she possessed, Emily responded with a vision that encapsulated her emotional landscape, each canvas representative of a different struggle and discovery. She outlined her desire to experiment with form, texture, and story, intertwining raw emotion with the aesthetics of her art. As she spoke, the council shifted from mere observers to engaged participants. Their questions became a dialogue about transformation and perception, reflecting a shift from judgment to understanding. As Emily continued, she felt an exhilarating release, a recognition that her art didn't need to conform to the industry's rigid standards to have value. Yet, as she navigated this moment of connection, a nagging doubt crept back. What if this approach alienated her from industry norms? What if embracing her authentic self cost her the opportunity she sought? The vulnerability that had once been a weight began to feel like her greatest strength, yet the stakes were nothing less than defining her future. In the end, it was the council's feedback that ignited her spirit further. They were intrigued by her authenticity, expressing interest in witnessing this new direction. As she left their office, a conflicting mixture of relief and trepidation swirled within her. The potential for growth had been unveiled, yet the skeletons of self-doubt still loomed in the corners of her mind. What had started as a confrontation of vulnerability was now a profound catalyst for evolution, but as she stepped out into the cool air, a haunting question persisted: was she ready to embrace the full depth of her artistic identity, even if it meant alienating some along the way? As she approached her studio, the weight of the evening's revelations settled upon her like a comforting blanket, but a new challenge lay ahead. Would she dare to redefine the very essence of her artistry, fully embracing the depths of her emotional landscape despite the risks? The following day dawned, casting a soft glow into Emily's studio as she wrestled with the implications of her meeting. Though the council's encouragement had fueled a flicker of hope, it was drowned out by the nagging fears that clawed at her mind. Would her artistic identity truly resonate if she peeled back the layers, exposing the rawness of her soul? She stood in front of her easel, brushes scattered like the remnants of her unraveling thoughts. Determined, she took to her canvas. The paint flowed with more conviction than ever, expansive strokes conveying turmoil and vulnerability. Yet, the hesitation lingered, an unwelcome specter swirling around her, whispering questions of legitimacy and acceptance. Perhaps the council was only intrigued by her novelty, the fresh narrative unfolding in her art without truly valuing it. As she worked, torn between audacity and doubt, a sudden sickness seized her resolve. The emotional weight of transparency was transformative, but would execution truly capture the vision? What if these canvases only mirrored her fears, crumbled under the strict scrutiny of an industry that favored the polished over the genuine? That week, Emily sought refuge in the local cafe, a milieu of creative energy where artists mingled, sharing ideas and experiences. It was a breathing space, invigorating yet suffocating as she observed a group clustered over a polished portfolio. Their laughter rang with a raucous authenticity that both intrigued and intimidated her. She wanted to join them but recoiled at the thought of probing questions, comparisons tethering her back into that gaping void of insecurity. Taking a leap, she summoned courage and approached. "What are you all discussing?" she asked, her voice betraying a tremor. Immediately, a buzz conversation quieted. The mix of faces turned towards her, curiosity piqued, and her heart raced. One artist chimed in: "We're debating the relevance of vulnerability in our work." Each word struck a chord within her, reigniting the turbulent discussion she'd had with herself. It was a mirror held to her present struggles, a battle she'd only begun to engage. Emily felt a surge of determination. "I've been exploring that recently. I'm experimenting with exposing my layered emotions in my paintings, though it makes me feel naked." Her admission cast the conversation into a new light, revealing their shared anxieties. "You should check out bold contemporary artists who've embraced emotional authenticity," one of them suggested. "It's more than just art, it's about opening dialogue." The details of their portfolios, detailing triumphs and failures, felt liberating, each story layered with honesty. With each passing moment, Emily realized she wasn't alone in her fears. Artists around her were navigating similar waters, redefining their identity through their struggles. She felt an inexplicable bond form, and for the first time in a long while, her vulnerability felt like a source of power instead of unease. As the conversation deepened, a thought ignited within her: vulnerability could serve as a bridge rather than a barrier. Each friction of doubt she'd felt was a signal to recalibrate her approach to art, not as a solitary endeavor, but as a shared human experience. She envisioned herself in a series where her emotional depths would resonate with others, sculpting her identity from their collective struggles. Yet, within this burgeoning confidence lingered an unsettling question: would this new perspective risk fueling isolation among her peers who pursued different aesthetics? Did she have the conviction to meld her identity with the artistic community or risk standing apart? The tension crackled within her like electricity, drawing her closer to decisive action but shadowed by hesitation. As she settled her bill and lingered in the cafe's warmth, ready to take another step forward, another thought pierced through: was there a way to evolve within her craft without losing herself completely? Preparing for the unknown filled her with both dread and anticipation. She had no choice but to discover where this amalgamation of identity and artistry would lead her. The studio awaited her return, and the colors on her palette beckoned. Would the rawness that emerged sing in harmony with the voices around her, or did the battle for genuine expression require a degree of isolation she wasn't ready to face? The air thickened with expectation, and a path opened before her. The moment of truth loomed just ahead. The studio door creaked as Emily stepped inside, the familiar scent of linseed oil and dried paint wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. Yet today, it felt different, a threshold to transformation rather than just a workspace. The faint sound of her heartbeat echoed in the silence, a reminder of the journey that lay ahead. With the vibrant chaos of paints strewn across the table, an idea ignited within her, a series that explored vulnerability through self-portraits. But the concept sent shockwaves of fear through her, exposing not just her artistry but the most intimate corners of her psyche. Without a moment's hesitation, she set to work, squeezing tubes of paint, the flicks of bristles against the canvas resonating with her pulse. Each stroke was an act of rebellion against her insecurities. She depicted herself shedding layers, the layers of expectation, doubt, and hesitation cloaking her true essence. The canvas became a battleground, a site for the fierce conflict between authenticity and self-preservation. What if the outcome was raw and unyielding? What if the world turned away, failing to understand her truth? With every session, the questions tightened around her. Was she ready to present her authentic self with all its flaws, its brokenness? Did her need for acceptance outweigh her desire for honesty? These internal dialogues echoed loudly, and she found herself wrestling with a painful paradox: daring to expose herself while yearning for the safety of anonymity. In the days that followed, the studio transformed into more than just an artistic haven. It morphed into a sanctuary where fear met creativity. She immersed herself in books about artists who had challenged norms, revealing their vulnerabilities through their work. Each page reinforced a sense of camaraderie, a belief that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the resolve to move forward despite it. Emily's growing clarity unveiled a crucial revelation: accessibility in art often stemmed from raw, unapologetic self-exploration. Yet, as the canvases proliferated, so did her internal conflicts. What had begun as a journey towards authenticity now felt like a dangerous inclination to bare her soul. On a particularly quiet afternoon, with painted figures staring back at her, she encountered a moment of reckoning. If vulnerability was truly a bridge to connection, then how could she ensure her vulnerability didn't alienate her from her peers and the wider art narrative? She clung to advice one artist had shared at the cafe: art is meant to provoke thought. Don't dilute your message for the comfort of others. But as the shadows of doubt loomed, they draped acutely over the canvases, each figure a reminder of the risk she was poised to take. Taking a deep breath, Emily decided to share her latest work with a trusted group of fellow artists. It felt like staring down a precipice, intimidating, yet exhilarating. The day of the gathering came, and she wrestled with self-doubt, aligning her narrative to conform to their expectations, but she pushed against it. Arriving at the meeting, she held herself carefully, balancing reluctance with optimism as she awaited their critiques. When she unveiled her self-portraits, the room felt charged, the quiet reverberating her fears. Would their reactions validate her fears, or could they reflect a shared vulnerability? She clung to the hope that these pieces, though imbued with her unrest, might resonate, might connect. As they examined her work, she sensed a potential shift, a budding acknowledgement of shared experiences underlying the technical discussions. Yet, that tension within her remained. Had she ventured too far? If her peers didn't follow her narrative, what would that mean for her identity as an artist? The air thickened, ripe with unspoken words and observations. Emily's heart raced, the moment felt pivotal. Suddenly, she was on that edge again, ready to confront the battle raging within. The stakes had never felt higher, and now it was time to find out if her journey towards authenticity would bring her liberation or further isolation. A question loomed larger: was she prepared for potential backlash, or did the hope for connection galvanize her spirit? The very essence of her journey hung in the balance, awaiting revelation. The counsel's decision arrived like a crescendo after a tense symphony. As Emily tore open the envelope, her breath caught. The printed letter bore the words she had longed for: "In recognition of your unique artistic perspective, we are excited to showcase your work at the upcoming community exhibition." Relief surged through her, momentarily washing away doubt and fear. She had dared to stand in her truth, risking everything, and now the validation had come through. But this moment of triumph swiftly evolved into reflection. Emily remembered her journey, the long hours spent wrestling with vulnerability, and her decision to embrace it as strength rather than weakness. The voices that once told her she was risking too much had been silenced by the realization that authenticity had formed her art's core. The vibrant self-portraits she had crafted, filled with raw emotion and undisguised struggles, were not mere images, they were declarations of her existence. Her success felt monumental, yet it was also laden with the gravity of realization: this wasn't just about art or accolades. Emily understood that her victory had showcased personal growth, fortifying her identity as both artist and mother. She had stepped beyond the confines of self-doubt. She was not just fighting for the gallery, but also for her son, a living testament to the belief that pursuing one's passion was not only permissible but essential. In preparation for the exhibition, she poured her heart into her studio. Every stroke became an explicit connection to her journey, every color and emotion that spoke to those who encountered her work. As opening night approached, she felt the amalgamation of excitement and apprehension, the anticipated questions of how others would perceive her narrative swirling in her consciousness. The night of the exhibition arrived, and Emily felt an electric pulse in the air, a recognition that each piece would resonate, not just her story but the struggles shared by many. Surrounded by fellow artists and community members, she felt the warmth of authentic connection. The vulnerability expressed through her work ignited conversations sparked by empathy and understanding. As visitors engaged with her portraits, she witnessed a powerful exchange of stories. People identified with her feelings, shared their battles, creating a tapestry of triumph over adversity. Emily's voice echoed through her art. She felt infinitely more than merely an observer in the realm of creativity. She had proven that her past doubts did not dictate her present, they had birthed an artist unafraid to expose her heart. A familiar face among the crowd caught her eye: Ben, her smiling son, radiating pride as he examined one of her paintings. In that moment, she saw the worth of her fight reflected in his innocence. She leaned down to him, whispering, "Do you like it?" His wide eyes lit up as he responded, "Mommy, you did this. It's beautiful." His words were a salve, affirming her crucial insight: she had built a legacy, not just the preservation of a physical gallery but the assurance that her son could witness his mother pursuing her dreams with passion. She had achieved a delicate balance between motherhood and artistry, proving to him that it was possible to embody both paths simultaneously. The night concluded with applause, and as tears blurred her vision, Emily let the joy wash over her. She had not only won the council's approval, she had laid bare her journey, transforming vulnerabilities into strength. Achievement was not merely being recognized, but also embracing who she had become: a dedicated mother, a courageous artist, and most importantly, a woman who dared to tread into the world with her heart on display. In the aftermath of the exhibition, her phone buzzed with messages of encouragement, sealing her resolve. This experience foreshadowed a new beginning, one robust with promise and unyielding courage. With every accolade she received, Emily affirmed her place in the artistic community, showcasing that embracing oneself was the greatest kind of vulnerability there was. Now, embarking on this vibrant chapter of her life, she recognized the continuous journey ahead. Each brushstroke was a testament to her evolution, a dialogue with herself, with the universe, and with her cherished son. She was ready to unfold more of her narrative, from gallery preservation to self-discovery and beyond, shaping the artist she had always aspired to be. This pathway of transformation had led her here, to a space filled with possibility, recognition, and fulfillment. Emily stood grounded in her identity, fully aware that she had not only reclaimed her artistry but had paved the way toward a profound legacy. Now was the time to share her journey with others. An inspiration stirred within. She envisioned a mentorship program for other mothers aspiring to embrace their creativity amidst life's demands. It extended a hand to those treading similarly tumultuous waters of self-discovery, a chance to show them that art and motherhood were not mutually exclusive. The future pulsed with a renewed vibrancy, and the tension of uncertainty transformed into an exhilarating uncertainty. She was ready to seize every moment. The world was her canvas, and Emily was prepared to paint it with resilience, authenticity, and the brush strokes of a life fully lived. As she envisioned this next stage, an idea blinked with urgency. Her story needed to reach beyond her studio walls, to echo into the lives of those navigating doubt and longing for connection. She would partner with others, host workshops, and share her narrative on platforms where artistic exploration met profound vulnerability. As she tightened the apron around her waist, surrounded by bottles brimming with swirling pigments, she smiled. This was just the beginning. Now, to all those witnessing her transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to this channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your personal journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help share the stories of overcoming. Comment your thoughts and reactions about Emily's evolution. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion of empowerment and triumph.